Hey, Shalom, Akim, Shalom, Shalom. Giving all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bashim, Habashai, Bashim, Makakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders, Great Millstone, for teaching us this truth, and salutations to the sincere Akim and Aquathing. And listen, may the blessing of election be upon your house. My name is Raquai. Back in here with another quick and Lord's will is always an edifying lesson. And for today's lesson, I wanted to go through a story or a bit of a chapter in the book of Judith. And, just to show how much, the heathens, which are the other nations, how much they study you Israelites, how much they, counsel to essentially, cast you down from your excellency. And one of the things I've noticed is that our people really don't care, about their own history, because when you know your own history, it forces you to not only walk more uprightly, but to be essentially a safeguard to the welfare of your nation. I'm sorry, right? And to understand a lot of the tactics, a lot of the things that certain um, uh, uh, um, tactics that the heathens would use, to essentially attack you, because really and truly we're experiencing examples of, you know, it could be biological, it could be psychological warfare as well, because really when you think about it, like I'll just use this as an example, removing the fathers out of the household, that's one of the a major thing, and uplifting the woman, that's destroying the family unit, right? And all of these different philosophies that's been pushed out, and our women going to different schools and subscribing to those different philosophies, such as feminism and so on and so forth. Those are different examples of styles of warfare that the heathens use to actually keep you down and keep you in subjection, right? So I wanted to read this chapter here because I thought it was very interesting, and just to show how much the heathens counsel to actually keep you on a low, in a lower state, right? And other people don't seem to actually care, about their welfare, don't care about the welfare of their nation, right? So I guess I'll start off with this precept here. And I'll get right to it. This is Isaiah chapter 1, verse 3. And it says here, "And the ox knoweth his owner, and the ass his master's crib. But Israel doth not know, my people doth not consider," right? So, and even when you think about these different two animals, they know and have an understanding of their master. They have an understanding of what their master does for them, so on and so forth. But when it comes to our people don't actually consider, and they think, very they don't actually consider the ways of the Lord, right? So I kind of just wanted to read through this. I thought it was a very, very good chapter here, and I sincerely pray that this lesson is edifying, right? So this is Judith, chapter 5, verse 1 here, and it says, "Then it was declared to Holofernes, the captain of the army of Assur, that the children of Israel had prepared war, and had shut up the passages of the hill country, and had fortified all the tops of the high hills, and had laid impediments in their campaign countries. Wherewith he was very angry, and called all the princes of Moab, and the captains of Ammon, and all the governors of the sea coast. And he said unto them, Tell me now, ye sons of Canaan, and who this people is that dwelleth in the hill country, and what are the cities that they inhabit, What is the multitude of their army, and wherein in their power and strength what king is set over them, and the captain of the army? So Holofernes basically, he wants to know the inside scoop about these people. He wants to know the inside scoop of these Israelites, right? They didn't, you know, they didn't come essentially bowing down to him and all that stuff. So he wants to know intel, right? Kind of like how you have a lot of these, like in those different spy movies. You have a guy in the movie, he's giving intel in regards to the enemy, so you essentially how you can take down the enemy. And that's another thing also, our people don't look at these other nations as as an enemy, right? So essentially they become very docile. Well, being in Babylon for so long, they've become very docile. The they don't see the other nations as an enemy, and because it's hard to know when you don't know who you are and you don't care to know who you are, you're gonna be swallowed up by the enemy, and that's why the scriptures say we are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because here it is, the enemy can easily, infiltrate even something as simple as your cell phone. They infiltrate. They've contaminated the food, they contaminated the air, the water, and all these different things, because that this is the way. I'm just using Esau as an example. This is an example of the way Esau fights. Another way that he fights is through the media, is through his words. That's why the apostles always push out a vibration of looking up words, right? So you don't get caught up in their jargon, right? Knowing how the end, this is just understanding your enemy, right? So here it is. You have this guy, the captain Holofernes. He wants to get the inside scoop on how to take these people down, how to take us down as a nation, right? So, and it says here, this is verse 4, and it says why they have determined not to come meet with me, and more than all the inhabitants of the west. Then said Achior, the captain of the sons of Ammon, it says, let my Lord hear now the word of my mouth of thy servant, and I will declare thee the truth concerning this people which dwelleth near thee, inhabiteth the hill countries, and there shall no lie come out of my mouth of thy servant. And it says here, verse 6, this people are a descendant of the Chaldeans. And it says here, they sojourned heretofore in Mesopotamia, because they would not follow the gods of their fathers, which were in the land of Chaldea. For they have left the way of their ancestors, and worshipped the Most High, Yahweh Bashmel, Shai of heaven, and the power whom they knew. So they cast them out of the face of their gods and fled into Mesopotamia and sojourned there many days. Right, going back to our forefather Abraham, because his father Terah was an idol worshiper. Right, so it says here, then their power commanded them to depart from the place where they sojourned, to go into the land of Canaan, where they dwelt and were increased with gold and silver and very much cattle. But there was a famine and when a famine covered all the land of Canaan, they went down into Egypt and sojourned there while they were nourished and became a great multitude. So essentially, now what he's describing now was our history, pinpointing when we were going into Egypt during the time of our forefather Joseph. Because during that time, Joseph had, basically he had risen up the ranks, and he would receive favor with the Pharaoh at that time. And then he was able to give the Pharaoh the action plan on what to do, So let me see if I can find that account actually, just to prove that. Let me see if I can find that. Just give me 1 sec. Okay, just bear with me on this. Um, this is um, this is Genesis 47. Um, I start at verse 4, and it says, "And they said, moreover to Pharaoh, for to sojourn in the land, are we come? For thy servants have no pasture for their flocks." So a pasture is basically, where flocks basically graze and eat, right? And it says here, "For the famine is sore in the land of Canaan. Now therefore we pray thee, let thy servants dwell in the land of Goshen." And Pharaoh spake unto Joseph, saying, "Thy father and thy brethren are come unto thee." Right. So essentially, it was a way for Joseph's his brethren, his family, to basically reunite, with Joseph, right? And Joseph was essentially at the helm of, putting together an action plan in order to get through the years of famine and to get through the years of abundance, right? So they went back and they were able to reunite with Joseph in Egypt, right? So but I'm reading this to show that you know how much this is how much history they knew about not just the welfare of our people, but knowing the different examples of periods of time when they knew about our different forefathers in different time periods, right? And it says here, continue going on, and it says, um, so I'll read verse 10 again, and it says, "But when a famine covered the land of Canaan, they went down into Egypt and sojourned there. And while they were nourished, they became a great multitude, so that one could not number their nation." Right. So essentially, after Joseph, he passes, and then there was a new Pharaoh that was raised up. You had another Pharaoh that got raised up essentially now, that did not know about Joseph and know about his works or his, anything like that. So Jake essentially, this is where you get like Exodus. This is the time of Exodus now, in the beginning of the Exodus, right? Now you have basically the children of Israel, the Israelites, they were beginning to multiply, right? And then there was a bit of fear upon the king at that time, because he's like, okay, let's deal with these people. Let's deal with these people wisely. This is kind of like how you see, in America, you have a lot of Israelites from the different tribes. Haiti, Mexico, the Caribbean, all the different tribes, right? All the different tribes are in America, but they're being oppressed, right? They're being oppressed, and they're despised by the other nations, because they realize the other nations don't multiply like Jake. That's really the point, right? But this is verse 11 here, and it says, "And therefore the king of Egypt arose against them and dealt with them subtly with them, and brought them to low with laboring in brick, and made them slaves." Right. So this is where you get the books of Exodus, the first couple chapters here. And it says here, verse 12, "And they cried unto their power, and he smote the land of Egypt with incurable plagues. So the Egyptians cast them out of their sight. And the Most High dried up the Red Sea before them, and and brought them to Mount Sinai, and Kadesh Barnea, and cast forth all that dwelt in the wilderness." So eventually, we went into the wilderness, and we dwelt in the wilderness. So this is where you get the time of Moses and Aaron, right? And the Lord feeding, and the Lord, we had a pillar of fire by day. By night, right? And the Lord fed us with quail and manna, and so on and so forth, right? So they knew about the Israelites' track record of different moments, in periods of history, right? Because this didn't all happen in one day, right? So this is a man that's giving an account, giving the intel, the inside scoop, I should say, on these other nations, how to take us down and what happened, the certain events, right? Because it shows you more, these other nations, they don't, their mindset is not to be in league with you. Their mindset is to take you down, right? And one of the things I've noticed as well, our people strongly lack a rulership type of mentality, right? They want to be buddy buddy with all these different nations and stuff like that. Yes, we operate peaceably, but these days these other nations are not your friend. They don't actually have the mindset of ruling alongside you. You know, their plan, their intent, you know, especially with Esau in these times, their intent is to keep you down. Their intent is to separate you from your power. So it says here, so this is verse 15, and it says, so they dwelt in the land of the Amorites, and they destroyed by their strength of I believe that's Eshban, and passing over Jordan, that all they possessed in the hill country. And they cast forth before them the Canaanite, the Perizzite, the Jebusite, and the Shechemite, and all the Girgashites, and they dwelt in the country many days, while they sinned not. So this is where, that's where you get the time of like Joshua. So we went into the land, and you know, basically, you know, we got rid of those different kings, those different heathens, right? And you know, then that's when you see, you know, our people, you know, they received, the different tribes had received their different portions, you know, of the land, right? But we had to clear all of those different heathens out, right? And then it was reiterated by that new generation not to, you know, give your sons to their daughters, because the Lord wanted us to be separate and to get rid of all their altars and their odious works, as Wisdom of Solomon, the 12th chapter, describes their hateful works. That's what the word odious really means, right? Because those different behaviors, those different customs of those old inhabitants of the land, they had a vibration to it, and the Lord wants us to be a separate, a holy nation, right? Because those different practices will become a snare unto our people, and that's exactly what happened. And that's when you get, and after Joshua passes, that's where you get the time of Judges, when the Lord will always raise up a judge, because we were following the ways of Baal, for example, right? So you know, I'm just giving a little bit of, like, you know, snapshots of different accounts here, because this what this person is describing is they're recounting a lot of history about our people, right? And our people, and they know, and that's the crazy thing too, they know a lot more about our people than our own people, right? Let me get this in Baruch. Hold on. Let's see, where's Baruch? Is it before? No, it's after. Just bear with me. This is Baruch chapter 4, verse 1, and it says, "This is the book of the commandments of the Most High Yahweh, and the law that endureth forever. All they that keep it shall come to life, but such as leave it shall die. Turn thee, O Jacob, and take hold of it, and walk in the presence of the light thereof, that thou mayest be illuminated," right? So be illuminated in righteousness, knowing your identity, your who you are, and knowing who the heathens are and how the enemy fights, right? And this one chapter alone gives you an understanding of how the enemy, you know, seeks to cast you down from your excellency and to keep you in a lower state. So I want to read and finish this off here. And it says, verse 17, Judith chapter 5, and it says, "While they sinned not before their power, they prospered, because their power, Yahweh Bashmel Shai, hateth iniquity, was with them. But when they departed from the way which was appointed to them, they were destroyed in mighty battles, very sore, and were led into captives into a land that was not theirs, and their temple of their power was cast to the ground, and their cities were taken by their enemies." So basically that kind of sums up, you know, Jeremiah. You know, when you go through Jeremiah, the prophet Jeremiah, he was warning about the Babylonians, and the Babylonians that are going to come and take you over, and basically the Lord, Jeremiah was an example of mercy, because Jeremiah is, the Lord would send us prophets to be able to like warn our people, about their wicked behavior. This is what's happening. This is what the judgment is going to come. Turn back from your ways, because as the scriptures say, our people were burning incense unto vanity. So they were, you had the different children. They were gathering wood to bake cakes for the Queen of Heaven. And those are the detestable works that our people were doing. And the prophets were warning them to get to stop doing those things. Stop the idol worship. Stop committing usury. Stop, the adultery. Stop the those filthy behaviors, because those were supposed to be a holy and a separate nation, right? This is verse 19. And it says here, but now they return to their power, and are come up from the places where they were scattered, and possessed Jerusalem, where their sanctuary is, and seated in the hill country, for it was desolate. Now, my Lord Governor, if there be any error against these people, they sin against their power, let us consider that it shall be their ruin, and let us go up, and we shall overcome them. But if there be no iniquity in their nation, let my Lord now pass by, lest the Lord defend them, and their power be for them, and we become a reproach before the world. And when Achior had finished these sayings, all the people standing round about in the tent murmured, and the chief men of Holofernes, and all the men by the seaside, and in Moab spake that he should kill him. For say they, we will not be afraid of the face of the children of Israel, for lo, it is a people that have no strength, nor power for a strong battle. Now therefore, Holofernes, we will go up, and we will be a prey to be devoured of all thine of all thine army, right? So they understood that our power, hates iniquity. And that's one of the things that Esau is very, very clever and very, very cunning at, is that, so I'll just use the music as an example, because our people love music. So what they will do is they will push very wicked messages in the music, to essentially, so we can delete each other, so we can sleep with each other's wives, right? So essentially it becomes a snare to lead us to commit adultery. And they know and understand our power hates those things. Those are very displeasing things in the eyes of the Heavenly Father, right? So I wanted to read this because it shows you how well studied the other nations were, and how stupid our people are today. Our people, as the scriptures describe, as sottish children, because they don't, because, well, today is what, March 3rd, I believe. We were just coming out of February, which is so-called Black History Month, and our people, when it comes to our history, our people just don't care. They don't care about the welfare, they don't care. They just care to just have a good time, right? But you see how much having, being in the house of, what's it called in Ecclesiastes, the house of mirth, that's going to lead, that being in that state perpetually, leads to destruction, because you're not seeing or aware of who your enemies are and what your enemies planning to do, right? So, and that's one of the things the enemy is trying to set up, a technocracy, digital system, right, where you don't actually understand. Well, you don't understand your power or your own history, and how much the other heathens, they seek to cast you down from that excellent, upright state of mind where the Lord would actually defend you, kind of like how the Lord came through for a righteous king like King Hezekiah, right? So our people, because they don't know these things, they don't know how to fight, right? They don't know about the importance of prayer and calling upon the name of the Lord in the right way, you know what I'm saying? So they essentially they get tossed to and fro, right? So I wanted to just read that, because it shows you how well studied these other nations are towards the wealth, towards taking down, I don't want to say the welfare, but taking down, the likes of our people, right? So that's why, it's, as it says in Philippians, to be, constantly, strive to be blameless and upright in a crooked and perverse nation, right? Because, we need somebody, we need a Lord to defend us in these times. That's really, the point as well, right? So, I'll leave the lesson there, but I just wanted to read that because I thought it was very, 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 very interesting. But Lord's will, this lesson was edifying. Just like to give all praises, glory, and honor to you. How about Shemel Shai? Until next time, I say Shalom.